Hello and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for coming. My name's Lyndon. In this video, I want to talk about and explain the theory of modes in the most straightforward way possible, because it's really important that you understand modes if you're a musician of any kind, and especially a sax player. And it's not difficult to understand, and it's really useful to be able to get this. I think sometimes the way this information can be presented is like really scary, in all honesty, but it doesn't have to be. You can make it really simple, and that's what this video is going to hopefully do. So by the end of this video, I really hope that you completely understand the theory of modes and understand all of the modes, all 7 modes, really well, and feel very comfortable and happy about that. Before I dive in, I'm going to say my thank yous. Thank you for subscribing. That helps the health of this channel. I'm trying to build up my subscribers, and I would love to get to sort of, 30,000 or something. That would be absolutely amazing. So please do help. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Thank you to the people that have bought me coffee, and that really help me pay the mortgage. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee, that you can. Thank you also for your lovely comments and your feedback and all of that stuff. It really motivates me to want to make more YouTube videos. Right, so let's dive in. So first of all, why bother learning modes? Well, if we have a look here, this is a chord chart for a beautiful tune called East of the Sun. Really lovely song. And as you can see, well, first time I had a look at a chord chart like this, what I saw when I didn't really understand chord charts, what I saw was a lot of hieroglyphics that looked to me terrifying, and I felt quite kind of depressed about it, because I felt, well, even if I could understand what was going on, presumably this is asking me to change key from one thing to another. I'm just never going to be able to think that fast or move my fingers that fast. It's just impossible. I just thought it was for other people, not for me. But it's not the case. You can totally do this, and there's lots of patterns that we can recognize within here. But in order to understand this, we really do need to be able to understand what the modes are. And so what we're going to do is to have a look at all of the modes from one major scale. So that's what modes are. Modes are just a major scale. It's exactly the same as your major scale. So let's take C major, for example. And if you start C major on the first note and you finish at the first note, that's what we commonly call a major scale. But actually, it's got another name, and that other name could be anything. It could be Bernard or Samantha, but there is another name for that, and that name is Ionian, and it's a Greek name, and that describes taking the major scale from the first note to that same note in the next octave. Now what you could do is you could shift everything along and take C major and starting on D and finishing on D in the next octave, and that, my friends, would give you a new scale. Let me show you what I mean, because I have written out the sheet. Now this sheet that I've written out, I've made it available for free download, so as a PDF. And you can just download that. So follow the link in the description if you'd like to follow this sheet. So look, let's look at the modes of C major. So as you can see, I've written out C at the top, and I've made red the root, the third, the fifth and the seventh, because the root, the third, the fifth and seventh is going to make the chord of C major. And I've written down the modal name, and I've written down, I couldn't figure out how to do a triangle on Word, so I've had to do a large M, but you'll still see it written down there, C major 7, and the type of scale that this is, which is a major scale. And these names, by the way, are Greek. That's where these words come from, and they're either regions of ancient Greece or tribes of ancient Greece. And the people that put all of this kind of thinking together, kind of solidified it, were European monks. And the people that kind of thought about music in a very theoretical way before that were Greeks. And so the European monks took a lot of information from the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, and then they kind of solidified it into the common theory that we see nowadays. And they used a lot of Greek words. So that's where they come from. All of these words are just Greek. They're either Greek tribes or Greek regions. And what I suggest that you do, so that you don't feel overwhelmed, is just think of it like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but in a foreign language. And the modes are Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. So if you, that's the first thing that you could do, is you could just learn those words. And that would be super useful, because at least then you're informed and you're not scared of these crazy words. And it's funny, because if I say that to a client, and if I mention these names, you can see that it's like, oh my God, I'm never gonna, what does it all mean? It's just intimidating, because it's in a foreign language, unless you speak Greek, presumably. So your first mode is the Ionian mode. That is the modal name. Now, as I've said, if we start C major, the same sequence of notes, but starting on the D, we go from D to D, and now we've got a different scale. And the reason for that is the relationship between the root and the third and the fifth and the seventh has now changed, and you get this sadder, darker sound. And the reason for that is the relationship between the root, whatever that is, and the third. And if it's, so what I've got down here, just for demonstration purposes, I've got I call this my COVID keyboard, because when COVID struck and I couldn't see any private clients in person, I did Zoom lessons, and to demonstrate things like this, I had to buy a keyboard just so that we could do it over Zoom. Right, so the thing is, if we have a look between C and E, you've got two whole tones. And if you've got two whole tones between the root, whatever that is, and the third note, you get this upbeat, positive, happy kind of sound. And if I do the root, third and fifth, which is C, E and G, or, yeah, that's nice. You've won a prize, hurrah! But in D minor, Dorian, the distance between the root and the third is now only a tone and a half. And so if I play that, the root, whatever that is, and the third, which is in this case F, and you get this sadder sound. And that is the distinction between major and minor, is all to do with the root, whatever that is, and the third note. If it's two whole tones apart, you get a major sound. If it's a tone and a half, you get a minor sound. And that is why D Dorian sounds sad. And I had such a hard time explaining this to one client who shall remain nameless, Andy. He really struggled with this idea, and I didn't think he was mad, bad or sad because he was struggling with this idea. I just looked inward and thought, how can I be a better instructor and explain this in a better way? Because he said, but D minor, it's just the same bunch of notes, so how come it sounds different? And the answer is because you're starting on the root. You're starting not on the root of C major, you're starting at a different point, and all of the notes now relate differently to each other. I explained it to him like this, and I think he more or less got it. Outside my house, in my front garden, there's a small wall that's got 4 rows of bricks, or 4 courses. Now imagine if I was able to remove those bricks and take them apart and clean them all up and then build an arch with the same bricks. You can't come along and then go, oh Lyndon, that's a nice wall. Well, it's not a wall anymore, is it? It's an arch. And you say, yeah, well, it's the same bunch of bricks though, isn't it? So it's a wall. And I say, well, it's not a wall anymore because I've built an arch out of the bricks. You know what I mean? I've rearranged them and now they function differently. They don't function like a wall anymore. And that's exactly the same. Even though you've got the same bunch of notes, it has a different sound. So the second mode is Dorian, and we would write that down as D minor 7, and it's a minor scale. And we can do that starting on the next point. So the next scale is a Phrygian. The next mode, if you take C major and go E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and can you see the E and the G and the B and the D have now become the chord tones, and that's called a Phrygian. And what I've done down here is I've written some subjective descriptions. These are just my way of thinking. You can think about it however you like. You can interpret it however you like. But for me, the Ionian has a bright, happy, positive and safe sound, whereas the Dorian is definitely darker. It's kind of lovely and sweet, but it's sad. There's a sadness in there. And the Phrygian scale, exotic, I've put exotic, sad, jazzy and Eastern. So listen if I play the Phrygian scale, just straight up and down. And if I play the chord tones, and now if I have a little jam, look. So for me, there's the kind of Eastern or Spanish or kind of more exotic flavour that's sitting around in this scale. And that's why I've said the Phrygian is exotic, sad, jazzy and Eastern. So the third mode of any major scale is the Phrygian. By the way, you could do this in any key. I could take this in any key and any major scale is going to give me 7 modes. So can you see how mind-bogglingly important major scales are? And this is why I rant on about them a lot. The fourth mode, so if you start C major on the fourth mode, you get a new set of chord tones and you get a Lydian, which is a type of major scale. And if I play that for you. And what I've said about this scale is it's kind of zesty and fresh and bright and surprising. It's got this, that instead of, if you think about F major, it would have a B flat. So this scale has got kind of a sharpened fourth. Does that make sense? Look, it would normally be a B flat, but now you've got a B. So the B flat has been sharpened into a B. So you end up with a sharp 4. And there is a really famous TV program that has a Lydian as its theme tune, and it's this. And that's The Simpsons, and that kind of, can you feel that it's kind of out somehow? It's just, there's a funny note out. That's that Lydian sound. That's why I've described it as kind of bright and surprising and fresh. So that's Lydian. Mixolydian, which is the next one. And by the way, Lydian, I don't want you to remember Lydian by thinking it's the Linden scale. It's not the Linden scale, okay? That's what I say to my clients, and it, of course, makes them remember it. And the next one is Mixolydian. Don't think of it as mixed up Linden. I'm not mixed up, okay? I sort of am a little bit. It's Mixolydian, and that would be C major starting on a G, and you get this G, B, D, and F. If I play those chord tones, look. So I just played root 3, 5, 7, 9. And we would call this a dominant seventh. That would be written down as G7. And again, you could do any one of these modes in any key. So that's your Mixolydian. This one, this sixth mode, is called Aeolian. And what's really cool about the Aeolian, well, it's kind of scary, but it's got 4 different potential names. Aeolian is also known as the relative minor. And sometimes, I think in America, you might call it the pure minor or the natural minor. So all of those names are describing the 6th mode of any major scale, but in this case the major scale of C. But it would be the same for any major scale. Go to the 6th mode, and that's your relative minor, also known as the Aeolian mode. And for me, it's a minor scale, and it's darker. It's kind of got this bittersweet quality, and I've put the word down ancient and sad. And really, if you listen to hymns, there's a lot of kind of relative minor in there. Have a listen, it's lovely. So lovely, so gorgeous, and definitely, for my interpretation, definitely darker than a Dorian minor. The last one, if you start C major starting on a B, and you get B, D, F and A, and I'm going to do this one on the COVID keyboard because it's really so interesting to listen to how far away from C major this sounds. Let me play the scale on the sax first, and this is half diminished, so it's not major, it's not minor, it's half diminished. And this is a really interesting scale. Let me play you a Locrian chord. So I'm just going to hit, this will be in a different key because I'm just going to hit it on the piano. So you get B, D, F and A. So have a listen. And for me, that sound, if you were thinking about where does that fit in a movie or a TV program or something, you know, does it fit as just as somebody's opening up their Christmas present? Well, not really, not unless it's a box of spiders. But where you would kind of, see it is, hear it is, you know, the stereotypical thing of like the person being tied to the train track rails while the steam engine's coming along. And that's because there's so much tension in this sound. It's super tense. And again, my student Andy, you know, saying, look, does that sound anything like C major to you? No, it really doesn't. It doesn't sound like C major at all. And yet, it's all the same notes as C major, but just been reorganized. So that is modes, and these are your modes. Like I said, you can download this. I think if you think about it visually, or if you look at it visually like this, doesn't that make it kind of interesting and easy to see? And bearing in mind that, look, you know, this is a type of minor 7, so that would be, it could be this type of mode or that type of mode. It's probably in that context, it's almost definitely a Dorian. And so all of these pertain to that. Now I've got one more sheet for you, which I hope you'll find useful, and you can also download that. So what we've been doing, before I show you, we've been doing the modes of C major. But as I've said to you, you could do a Dorian in any key, and a Phrygian in any key, and a Lydian in any key, if you understand the structure. And so what I've done is, on my other sheet, check it out. Let's take these away so that we can focus. And what I've done is that I've written out all of the modes in C. Not in C major, as I was going to say, but in C. So this is a Dorian scale in the key of C. This is the way that we would write it down. These are the notes. This is the modal name. And here I've written down for you, this is the second mode of B flat major. That means that this bunch of notes is exactly the same as B flat major, but starting on C, which is the second mode, right? Because Dorians are the second mode. So this is C Dorian. And here I've written down what changes have been made compared to C major. So compared to ordinary C major, C Ionian, this has got a flat 3 and a flat 7. Let's check that out. There's the flat 3 and there's the flat 7, and that makes a C Dorian. And without going through each one of these and making this video too long, That's what I've done everywhere. So a Phrygian is also a type of C minor 7 because it has the same root 3, 5 and 7, but the notes in between are different. This would be the third mode of A flat major, and if you wanted to build a Phrygian, take any major scale, and if you flatten the second and the third and the sixth and the seventh notes, that will build you, that's the recipe for a Phrygian, and so on and so forth. This is a type of major scale because the root, the third, the fifth, the seventh are the same as a major scale, but the fourth note has changed. This is the Simpsons sound, and if you want to build that in any key, just take any major scale and you sharpen the fourth. In this case, this is the fourth mode of G major, so it's the same bunch of notes as G major but starting on a C. And so it goes on. This is C7, this is C in a mixolydian. All you have to do is to take C major and flatten the seventh. This is your Aeolian, which is kind of this is the relative minor, and this would be the relative minor of E flat major. And if you want to build a relative minor or Aeolian mode, you flatten the third and you flatten the sixth and you flatten the seventh. And with this Locrian, you have to flatten everything, and this is the big thing that makes a Locrian. It's got a flat 5, so it's got flat 2, flat 3, flat 5, flat 6 and flat 7. So if you ever flatten the fifth of anything, of a major scale, you get this really dark, dangerous sound. Right. Please let me know, was that useful for you? I know there's a lot of information to take on board, and if this has melted your brain, or if you think, no, do you know what, I'm not completely getting this, just give it some time. The first level is just acceptance. Everything that I've told you is accurate and true, and it is really, really, really important. So if you can just accept it, then that's a really, really good start. And then what I would start with, if this is difficult to take on board, is just get comfortable with the modes of C major. So in other words, this sheet here, just get comfortable with this for the time being. That would be the first thing. And if you can get comfortable with this, then do that in another key and see if you can work out all of the modes of G major or D major and just get comfortable with that. And then this is just like a cross-reference, that's all it is. But take your time, don't panic, right? And it will make sense in the end, I do promise. I do hope that was useful for you. Please let me know in the comments below, because that's really, really, really great feedback. I really hope that that's been helpful. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all the people that have shown such fantastic support for this channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.